Chapter 1581, Non-Human. Ruan Ping was blasted into the middle of the sea. He floated up from the cold sea water, and his golden supernatural power gathered at the soles of his feet, forming a stable platform. He was drenched, breathing heavily and looking extremely miserable. The top half of his clothes had been blasted to bits, revealing his pale back. However, at the location of his spine, there was a terrifying crack that faintly revealed his black spine. Jiang Yi had already arrived and, upon seeing the scene before him, doubts arose in his heart. This guy's body is so strange. Could it be that he's a cyborg? Despite his doubts, Jiang Yi did not hesitate to strike. While he could consider capturing him alive, his priority was to kill Ruan Ping, and he would not spare even a single drop of water. The sword in the tree cut through the sky, void slash. Jiang Yi floated in midair, his long sword swinging back and forth. The long, narrow black blade slashed down towards the sea like a large net, leaving no space for Ruan Ping to dodge. If Ruan Ping wanted to compete with Jiang Yi in speed, he would definitely not have any chance of winning. At this time, he had been seriously injured, and apart from choosing to fight head-on with Jiang Yi, there was no way for him to escape. He gasped for breath, and the golden light on his body suddenly surged, eventually forming a heavy set of golden armor on the surface of his body. The void blade slash fell, making a ping-pong sound on his armor, and it actually blocked Jiang Yi's attack. However, with each slash of the void blade, the golden armor on his body weakened a little, and Ruan Ping's body was uncontrollably knocked back. At this moment, the second charge of the heavenly cannon had been completed. Ruan Ping was prepared for the terrifying power this time, so he noticed it immediately. But what good was noticing it? Even Jiang Yi, who was only in the front line, was already too much for him to handle. Cut off your own limbs and surrender. Either that or die, Jiang Yi said to him. Ruan Ping's gaze darkened, and his eyes were filled with an uncontrollable rage and despair. You want me to surrender? To a worm like you? Ha, absolutely not. He roared, and the golden supernatural power in his right hand condensed into a huge battle spear, which he hurled fiercely at Jiang Yi. But this time, it was simply unable to pierce even one of Jiang Yi's dimensional gates. You are too weak, Jiang Yi said coldly. Ruan Ping was enraged by these words. The golden light on his body was like water being squeezed out of a sponge, and he used it to attack Jiang Yi with all kinds of weapons. However, the term absolute defense was no joke. Defense is the best offense, and this is Jiang Yi's motto. Facing an existence inferior to him, Jiang Yi has always struck hard, leaving no chance for the opponent. Since you're looking for death, don't blame me. Jiang Yi twisted his two fingers in midair, and in the void, a huge force instantly twisted open, fiercely crushing Ruan Ping's entire body into a ball. At the same time, Lu Karen also launched a shocking strike from the heavenly cannon. Under the dual attack, Ruan Ping's body was almost blown to pieces. The powerful explosion caused the waters of the East Sea to boil, and a huge spherical cavity with a radius of more than 10 kilometers was blasted out on the sea surface. Then came the sound of roaring waves, as the seawater poured back in. At this moment, Jiang Yi's pupil suddenly contracted, because on Ruan Ping's body, he saw something different. Under their attack, Ruan Ping's body was rotting. His pale skin was flaking off like newspaper stuck to a wall, revealing the dark red thorny skin underneath. That wasn't human skin. His arms were covered in dense bumps, and the texture of the skin was very similar to metal. In particular, his arms, as the skin flakes fell off, revealed his palms. No, they weren't palms, they were claws. Long and thin, covered in scales, with sharp claws, dark red claws. A beast-type mutant? Or, is he not even human? Jiang Yi's heart pounded. If he were a beast-type mutant, there would be no need to hide his true form in this way. Unless, this was his true appearance, and he had to use artificial skin to cover himself. What the hell is this guy? And where did he come from? Jiang Yi's mind was in a complete mess, but his body took the most instinctive action before his thoughts could catch up. Kill! No matter who the opponent is, as long as they pose a threat to his existence, then kill them. The safest thing is to kill them. Star-piercing cannon. Jiang Yi took advantage of Ruan Ping's weakest moment to gather the most powerful force in his body and fired a star-piercing cannon directly at Ruan Ping. The super high-speed void energy was like a sharp sword, cutting through everything in its path, including Ruan Ping's chest. Ruan Ping looked down at the black sword in his chest, and dark green blood flowed down his wound. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Jiang Yi knew that Ruan Ping no longer had the strength to fight back, his power was completely depleted. So he wanted to capture him alive. Jiang Yi swooped down, and the sword in the tree in his hand suddenly swelled up in midair, transforming into thousands of huge vines that spread a large net in midair and descended towards Ruan Ping's head. Ruan Ping, however, looked up and said to Jiang Yi with an incredibly strange and tragic expression, "This is not the end, it is only the beginning. After I die, your end will not be far behind. Remember, there will be beings that are much more powerful than me coming. Nothing can change the ending of your death. This is the price you pay for killing a god." Jiang Yi frowned, sensing that something was wrong, and the release of the sword in the tree in his hand sped up even more, completely binding Ruan Ping. The huge vines in the sky closed in midair, forming an enormous sphere, which then compressed towards the center. But at this moment, Ruan Ping raised his right hand, with his 5 fingers closed together like a sharp sword, and stabbed directly into his own heart. An extremely terrifying force exploded with him at the center. Ruan Ping chose to end his life rather than become Jiang Yi's prisoner. However, in the face of this level of explosion, Jiang Yi did not choose to dodge, but instead dove headfirst against the power of the explosion. An explosion of this magnitude is not enough to threaten me. Even if I'm going to die, I'll take your origin with me. A disabled black chariot was delusional in thinking that this would stop Jiang Yi from obtaining his origin. The sword in the tree pierced his body directly, and before Ruan Ping's body was blown to pieces by the explosion, it wrapped around his origin and returned to Jiang Yi's hands. Chapter 1582, Who the hell is he? Ruan Ping's origin fell into Jiang Yi's hands. He didn't rush to absorb it, but instead put it away first. This battle also cost him a certain amount of energy, but due to the advantage of occupying the native land and the help of the Tianhai City cannon, he was able to achieve victory without too many twists and turns. However, Ruan Ping's strength, as well as the fact that the opponent had hidden in Tianhai City for a year, still caused him to have hidden concerns in his heart. Jiang Yi's gaze swept coldly in all directions, as if a lord surveying his domain. Tianhai City, is it not as safe as imagined? Could there still be hidden enemies lurking? And this Ruan Ping fellow, just who is he? Where did he come from, and what exactly are his intentions? Jiang Yi is at a loss to figure it all out right now. After a few quick movements, he returned to the location where the Volt Shadow Troop was, and released everyone from dimensional space. The battle just now had already caused by Li Changqing and the others to fall into a state of insanity. The aftermath of that battle alone could easily kill them all. Jiang Yi looked at the remaining 29 members of the Volt Shadow Troop and said indifferently, "Everyone must strictly follow the process and accept Ms. Yang's test." How dare anyone object at this point? They quickly obediently spoke up and shouted, "Yes, for the supreme glory." Jiang Yi personally watched them as they took Yang Xinxin's test one by one. Fortunately, the rest of the process went very smoothly, and no one was found to be a second Ruan Ping or the like. No one knew about the existence of an undercover Ruan Ping either. Although this was good news, Jiang Yi found it hard to be happy. Because Ruan Ping died in a self-destruction explosion, after he died, his body was completely blown to ashes, so it was impossible to obtain any biological tissue or his intelligence. "Xiao Honglian!" Jiang Yi shouted. "Here!" Xiao Honglian ran out from the crowd and stood in front of Jiang Yi in a straight military posture, with her right hand on her chest and her chest held high. Supreme, what are your instructions? Jiang Yi pointed at her and said, you were once a member of the Tianhai City Police Force and are very good at criminal investigations. I'll give you 3 days to investigate everyone in Tianhai City right now. Make sure their backgrounds are clean and that there are absolutely no suspicious people. Xin, go to Blizzard City and ask for the resident information of Tianhai City and provide it to her. Jiang Yi cleanly assigned the task. Yang Xin nodded, okay, brother. Xiao Holian's expression was a little excited. This was the first task she had received since joining the Volt Shadow Troop. Now, she had another chance to get close to Jiang Yi. So she would definitely seize this opportunity very seriously. She would try her best to show Jiang Yi that she was useful. Yes, Supreme. Xiao Holian shouted. Bai Li Changqing walked over and looked at Jiang Yi with a concerned expression. Captain, about this matter, do we need to communicate with Blizzard City? Jiang Yi thought about it for a moment, and a sneer suddenly appeared at the corner of his mouth. Of course. Tianhai City was attacked, and there is a Epsilon-class mutant lurking here for a year. Several major regions of the Huashu Kingdom are suspect. Even if they didn't do it, it's possible that foreign mutants are up to no good. I want to talk about this openly. Fortunately, the other party had seriously underestimated his strength this time. Otherwise, if that person had suddenly struck a year ago, Jiang Yi could not imagine the terrible consequences. However, he also knew in his heart that this incident was most likely not arranged by the major powers in the Huashu Kingdom. Otherwise, they would have notified Ruan Ping of Jiang Yi's strength and his level. Jiang Yi took Yang Xin back to the shelter and contacted the heads of the major districts of the Huashu Kingdom as soon as he arrived, informing them of the matter. Just now, I was attacked by a mutant with an ability index of 20,000+. He has been lurking in our Tianhai City for a year, and it seems that he has been planning against me for a long time. Everyone, what do you think of this matter? After receiving this news, the heads of all the major districts were taken aback and all said that they had nothing to do with this matter. Jiang Yi was too lazy to chat with them one by one, so he directly called an online meeting, where everyone could discuss the issue together. If anyone really had a problem, it would be easy to expose their flaws in front of the senior management of each region. Soon, the online meeting began, and everyone's 3D stereo projection appeared in Jiang Yi's living room. Including Zhu Zheng, the representative of the Jiangnan region, who also came in person. Tianhai City had been attacked, and he naturally wanted to express his concern to Jiang Yi. Chaos, what exactly happened? Can you tell us in detail? The person speaking was Meng Yingchuan, also known as Black Tortoise, from the East Sea region. He looked like a teenager, but he always frowned when thinking, giving the impression of a mature young man. The others also stared at Jiang Yi, hoping that he would give a clear account. Jiang Yi said indifferently, today, I discovered a strange person in Tianhai City. He has been in Tianhai City for at least a year, and when I revealed his identity, he exploded with Black Chariot-level power. His gaze swept over everyone at the scene. Since when have Black Chariot-level mutants become so common? How could they even be assigned to spy on me? Chaos. Jiang Yi's tone was somewhat mocking, but in fact, it was precisely because of this that he didn't suspect the other districts very much. A Black Chariot is a being that can stand at the pinnacle of the mutant pyramid in the Huashu Kingdom. Right now, the only mutants on the surface that have reached the Black Chariot level are him and Ho Tu. Who would be willing to let go of such an important combat force and let them lurk in Tianhai City for a year? Sure enough, Li Changgong was the first to speak, and his tone was very agitated. This is ridiculous. A Black Chariot-level mutant? I want to know who would be so wasteful. In which country in the world has the guts to do this? He originally wanted to say that as the Northwest King, he only has 18,000 points right now, but he didn't have the heart to say it when the words were on the tip of his tongue. In the Xinjiang region, the newly appointed commander-in-chief, Meng Yuanjun, looked like a gentle middle-aged man. He also smiled and said, "Yes, no matter how you think about it, this doesn't make sense. There are only a handful of mutants at the Black Chariot level, whether it's my Huashu Kingdom, Columbia, Fremons, Britannia, Gaul, or Prussia." Jiang Yi's expression was very solemn, and he crossed his arms under his chin. "This is the most troublesome problem. If that person wasn't sent by you, then who was it?" Time passed in silence as everyone looked at each other, gradually feeling a strong sense of alarm in their hearts. Just how powerful would a force have to be able to get a Black Chariot level mutant to go undercover? Chapter 1583 Suspected Underdog. At this time, Luozhua, the current political and religious leader of the Southwest region, asked, "His Excellency Chaos, is the Black Chariot you mentioned really a human?" This question sounded like a thunderbolt in everyone's mind. "Is he human?" Yes, Jiang Yi never said from beginning to end that the Black Chariot was human. Luozhua had experienced the war in the Demon Kingdom, so he had seen the powerful and terrifying existence of the different species in the underground world. Therefore, he asked, could it be that the guy lurking in Tianhai City is not human, but from the underground world? Jiang Yi looked at Luozhua's somewhat childish face and a smile slowly curled the corner of his mouth. Although Luozhua was not very old, he had obviously grown up a lot after becoming the supreme commander of the Southwest region. Jiang Yi said, before he died, he exploded himself, and there wasn't even any residue left. But I did see something strange about him. For example, he was wrapped in a layer of human skin, and the structure underneath the human skin was a bit like that of a lizard. Jiang Yi's gaze was deep as he said, perhaps this was the reason why he chose to explode himself. He just didn't want us to see clearly his true identity. Han Shanzhua, the Luya Dao Lord, of the Northeast region, muttered with his head bowed, the existence of an underground world? These guys, could they already be able to invade our world on the surface? That would be a big problem. A solemn expression appeared on Han Shanzhua's always smiling face. Those guys underground are very powerful. If they appear on the surface, it's unimaginable what kind of disaster they would cause to our Huashu kingdom. Meng Yuanjun, however, spoke indifferently, not necessarily. According to Chaos, that person has been lurking in his Tianhai city for a year. If they wanted to attack our Huashu kingdom, they would have done it a long time ago. He looked at Jiang Yi and asked, Chaos, I dare to ask. If he had attacked you a year ago, what do you think would have happened? Jiang Yi's mouth curled up, everyone in Tianhai city would have died, including me. But he would also have been blown to ashes by the Reaper of Love. Black Tortoise nodded as he rested his chin in his hand. Chaos's theory is very reasonable. In other words, the other party possesses no less intelligence than our humans. They appeared in the human world in order to observe us. However, they may also be aware that humans possess the terrifying weapon of the Reaper of Love, and therefore dare not take any rash actions, right? Jiang Yi shook his head. That's not necessarily true. I have personally witnessed that powerful being beneath the Qinling Mountains can counter the Reaper of Love with a small amount of energy. Moreover, the Reaper of Love may not be able to instantly kill Epsilon, who has special abilities. Therefore, it is better to say that they are not afraid of the Reaper of Love, but rather that they are gathering intelligence. Jiang Yi used himself as an example and said, for example, myself, no matter what kind of opponent I face, I will do my research in advance to avoid any mishaps. Han Shanzhua said coldly, if that's the case, a year is more than enough time for them to do their research. Now, there is something even more terrifying. Is this kind of undercover only found in Tianhai City? Could there be one near us as well? These words sent a chill down everyone's spine. If there is a powerful mutant of the Black Chariot level lurking nearby, they would be afraid that they could not sleep soundly at night. Li Changgong spoke up, that may not be the case. He looked at Jiang Yi and said, if it really is an existence from the underworld that has appeared, the only person he should be looking for is Chaos. After all, among us, only he has been to the forbidden areas of civilization where many underworlds are located. The crowd nodded in succession. After the end of the world, other mutants of Epsilon level are the guardians of the region, top combatants cultivated with the combined strength of the entire region. Therefore, their primary task is to maintain peace within the region. But Jiang Yi is different. He is able to have the strength he has today entirely on his own. Therefore, he is not bound by the restrictions of the region and can move freely. Star Island Misty Valley, the underground Qinling Mountains, Nash Kingdom in the southwest region, and Neon Edo. He has dealt with too many civilizations in the underground world. So it is no surprise that he would be targeted. Jiang Yi rested his chin in his hands. Li Changgong's words suddenly made him think of something. Almost 2 years ago, he went to Star Island's Misty Valley and obtained a copy of the Source of God from beneath the abyss. Soon after, the Sky Dragon King, who had also been trapped in the Misty Valley, was artificially modified and became a mutant of level Epsilon, coming to seek revenge on him. Although he slashed the Sky Dragon King had warned him before he died that he had been marked. Sooner or later, the being beneath the Misty Valley would appear to come for him. Marked? Could it be that he was being watched by a mutant disguised as Ruan Ping? But why hadn't he come for him in the first place? Jiang Yi was baffled and was lost in thought. His expression confirmed Li Changgong's words. Li Changgong asked, "Chaos, is there something else you're not telling us?" Jiang Yi glanced at him and said indifferently, "There is indeed something personal. Do you want to hear it? Please go on." Jiang Yi also did not hide the Sky Dragon King in the Misty Valley, and told him about it as well. Li Changgong frowned. "Are you saying that the mutant came from the Misty Valley? Because you went to the Misty Valley in the first place to obtain the Source of God?" Jiang Yi shrugged. "Who knows? After all, I haven't had much contact with them. At that time, I was just there for the treasure hunt." Meng Yuanjun, who had been listening to their conversation, lowered his head in deep thought. Suddenly, he looked up at Jiang Yi and said, "Perhaps, the mutant never made his move, not because he didn't want to, but because he couldn't." Couldn't? Jiang Yi frowned, unable to understand what Meng Yuanjun meant. Why couldn't he? Meng Yuanjun laughed. "I can't explain it clearly, but the information we have gathered seems to indicate that those powerful civilizations lurking underground are restricted by some kind of rule and cannot appear in the world of humans on the surface." He shrugged his shoulders, but it seems that this restriction is slowly being lifted or the suppression is weakening. I think if you hadn't discovered the identity of that person, he wouldn't have turned against you in such a short time. Jiang Yi's mind conjured up a flash of lightning that pierced the heavens and earth. He remembered the bolt of lightning that had killed the divine Nest sun god back in the Edo period. Everything seemed to make sense. Chapter 1584, A Warning to All Regions. Li Changgong came to this conclusion after listening to Jiang Yi's words. "It seems that when you first went to the Misty Valley on Star Island, you did something you shouldn't have. You offended the underground civilization there. They've already set their sights on you." Li Changgong raised the corners of his mouth in a somewhat mocking expression. "At least now we can prove that we had nothing to do with this." Hey, you're calling everyone over here to lecture them, and it's really annoying." Jiang Yi looked up at Li Changgong. "You're full of crap. This is just your speculation, and there's no way to prove it. And you seem to have forgotten a very important point," Jiang Yi said with a sigh. "That black chariot-level mutant came to Tianhai City, and I was able to kill him." Li Changgong's eyes narrowed, and Jiang Yi was blatantly warning him. This was no longer the same as it was in the beginning. In the beginning, Li Changgong still had the strength to compete with Jiang Yi, but now, his ability index was only 18,000 points, while Jiang Yi had reached the height of 25,000 points. The two sides had long since been on different levels. Li Changgong's eyebrows stood on end. "It's just an advantage of the terrain. If you dare to come to my northwest region, I guarantee you'll suffer." Meng Yuanjun quickly stepped forward to be the peacemaker. Okay, you both should say less. Now that we're facing an external crisis, We should be united against the outside, and we should never fight among ourselves. Li Changdong snorted, and Jiang Yi didn't bother to respond to him. Ever since the Battle of Xinjiang, Li Changdong, a proud and arrogant guy, has always wanted to get even. He hasn't touched Jiang Yi yet, so Jiang Yi doesn't want to pay him any mind. But if he really angers Jiang Yi one day, he'll know what a terrible consequence it is. Meng Yuanjun said to the others, "What Chaos said may very well be the reason for the appearance of that black chariot level. We must not let our guard down either, and we must be on high alert." He looked at Jiang Yi and said, "Chaos, if you need help from anyone, just let us know. We are family, and we will definitely help you in any way we can." Jiang Yi sneered inwardly. He could still tell when someone was just saying things to be polite. At this point, everyone basically believed that the attack was entirely Jiang Yi's own fault, and had nothing to do with the other regions of the Huashu kingdom. So Jiang Yi would have to solve this problem himself. Unless it threatens their region, they are unlikely to take the initiative to intervene. Of course, if Jiang Yi really gets into trouble and is willing to lower his head and ask for help, and promises to give certain benefits, they will also come to help out of common interest. At this time, the 6 major regions are like close brothers who have just split up their family. There will be conflicts and struggles among themselves, but when they really encounter an external force invasion, they also understand the truth that if one falls, the other will fall too, and they will not stand by idly. "I understand," Jiang Yi said indifferently. "This time I informed you of the matter without any suspicion of you. I just want to give you a heads up, so that you can be careful in the future if a similar situation arises on my side." However, Jiang Yi paused, his gaze sweeping over the crowd. "You'd better not think that this matter is only related to me, Jiang Yi personally. It's best to be on your guard." Meng Yuanjun nodded, "Of course." Li Changdong crossed his arms and said lightly as he stood proudly in his commander's uniform, "Under my leadership, the Northwest region has long been as strong as a steel lock. Anyone who dares to offend will definitely not return. Suit yourself." Jiang Yi didn't even bother to look at him. "Okay, if there are no other questions, let's end the meeting," Jiang Yi said. The others nodded. "If we encounter a situation in the future, we can discuss it again. Then that's all for today." The representatives of each region logged off one after the other, and in the end, Zhu Jing was still in the meeting. During the meeting, he didn't say a word, and Jiang Yi only called him over out of courtesy. However, he did not have the authority to make real decisions, and Jiang Yi still had the final say. At this point, everyone else had left, so he spoke up, "Jiang Yi, if Tianhai City needs any help, just let me know. Blizzard City will do its best to support you." Jiang Yi looked at Zhu Zheng's sincere and worried face and smiled, saying, "Thank you for your kind offer. But don't worry about me." After thinking for a moment, he said to Zhu Zheng, "In the near future, strengthen Blizzard City's defenses. Although they are most likely coming for me, we must avoid any collateral damage to you." Zhu Zheng said, "Jiang Yi, you don't have to say things like that. If the Jiangnan region doesn't have you, it's like a house without a pillar. So everything will be prioritized for you." Jiang Yi nodded and said with a smile, "Then thank you very much. If there is a need, I will contact you." Zhu Jing then logged off. After everyone had logged off, Yang Xinxin, who was standing behind Jiang Yi, walked over to him and sat down gently. "It seems that they have nothing to do with it." Yang Xinxin turned her head and stared at Jiang Yi. Could it really be the existence of Star Island's Misty Valley? Jiang Yi asked in return, "If it's not them, then who else could it be?" Yang Xinxin said, "The human realm is unlikely." Yang Xinxin, who was always resourceful, was also at a loss for words at this moment. Facing an unknown but powerful underground civilization, and in the face of a power gap that may be impossible to solve, she also had a hard time imagining how to deal with it. At this moment, she instead hoped that this matter was the doing of some superpower of humanity. Jiang Yi rubbed his eyebrows and then quickly flashed a bright smile at Yang Xinxin. There's no need to be so worried. I've fought the Hades gatekeeper before. In hindsight, his strength was truly terrifying, far beyond 30,000. But now, I'm not the Jiang Yi I once was. If we add in the resources of the entire Tianhai city, we may not be unable to ward off the crisis that may come. If all else fails. A fierce look flashed in Jiang Yi's eyes. We still have the Reaper of Love. Yang Xinxin reminded Jiang Yi, so far, the launch authority for the Reaper of Love is still in the hands of Zhu Zheng. She gently leaned into Jiang Yi's ear and whispered sweet, warm breaths like a little devil. Do you want to take it over? Jiang Yi gave a faint smile. No need. If I really did that, the other major regions would not sit idly by. After all, the Reaper of Love is extremely dangerous, and I am just a lone wolf. As can be seen from the previous incident with Qin Qigong, many people are doubtful of my attitude. Moreover, that kind of thing may not be as effective as the combustible heavenly weapon in Tianhai City. Chapter 1585, On Full Alert. Jiang Yi's heart was still filled with worry at this time. Not because he understands the power of Star Island's Misty Valley, but quite the opposite, because he simply has no idea how powerful that force really is. He is a very cautious person, and in this situation, he can only prepare for the worst. Therefore, after the meeting, he directly called in everyone in the shelter and gave them a series of tasks. Tianhai City will likely suffer a terrible attack one day in the future. That day may come at any time, a year from now, or tomorrow. So from now on, no one can afford to be lazy. We must do our best to prepare for every possible attack. Jiang Yi said this while staring at Fatty Su. He was holding a game console in his hand and was planning to find a corner of the sofa to play games with Liang Yang, as usual at meetings. Especially you, Fatty Su. Stay focused and don't lose face. Fatty Su opened his mouth when he was glared at viciously by Jiang Yi, and quickly put his phone down. Don't worry, boss, I know what's important. I'll do whatever you tell me to. Jiang Yi nodded. Good boy. That's the spirit. Jiang Yi called Lu Karen over. The most important thing right now is to build the heavenly weapon. The Tianhai City cannon already has very powerful destructive power, and a full force strike is no less than the equivalent of an attack by a mutant of the Black Chariot level. Although it has the disadvantages of limited mobility and a long recharge time, it is very effective when used in conjunction with me for surprise attacks. However, I need a more powerful weapon system. Ideally, one that can be used in conjunction with me, a city defense weapon system. Moreover, the utilization of barrier stones needs to be improved. They have a very good restraining effect on supernatural powers. Jiang Yi said this, looking at Lu Karen with the same kind of admiration as one would a precious treasure. And looking at the world today, only you have the ability to replicate barrier stones. This will become a huge trump card for us. Barrier stones are produced in the Nash Kingdom, and no one knows how they are made. When they first entered the Nash Kingdom, several parties took away some of the fragments of barrier stones. But it's hard to say when they'll succeed in their research and produce a similar material. Only Lu Karen can use her divine machinist abilities to directly analyze the composition and structure of the barrier stone material and use the existing raw materials to reproduce it. Lu Karen nodded vigorously. Brother, I will accelerate the production of barrier stone during this time and work hard to build an even more powerful weapons system. In order to protect the entire Tianhai City. And my brother, she thought to herself. I will work tirelessly to get this done in no time. Lu Karen looked at Zhou Qi and said, Zhou, you need to help me with this. Zhou Qi's abilities could indeed stimulate the activity of her cells, allowing Lu Karen to work tirelessly for a long time. Zhou Qi frowned slightly and said, Karen, physical fatigue can be relieved. But mental fatigue cannot. Lu Karen gave a bright smile, showing her full set of white teeth. Don't worry, I've always been very capable. She gave a thumbs up, and her confident smile showed everyone her determination. Jiang Yi originally didn't want to make this young girl in her early 20s work so hard. However, at the moment, an unknown crisis could strike at any time. No one could afford to slack off. Otherwise, Tianhai City would face certain doom. Jiang Yi continued to assign tasks. Everyone else cooperate fully and do your best to build the Tianhai barrier as quickly as possible. However, despite all the hard work, there is no need to worry too much. The worst that can happen is that I will take you all with me and flee Tianhai City. Jiang Yi, whose supernatural ability index has now reached 25,000 points, is in Tianhai City, his home base. If he really wanted to escape, there was no one who could stop him, unless they were a high-level supernatural being with space abilities or someone whose strength far exceeded his. At the very least, Jiang Yi's impression of the Hades gatekeeper was that, despite his formidable strength, his ability to pursue was not necessarily strong. In the end, Jiang Yi had a somewhat devious method to escape. That was to forcibly take control of the Reaper of Love and drag the entire Huashu kingdom down with him. Although this approach is a bit despicable, if it comes to a desperate situation, there is no time to care about that. In the following time, everyone became busy. Jiang Yi even used the satellite authority of Tianhai City to designate the entire area within 500 kilometers of Tianhai City as an area of key concern, making sure to keep tabs on any and all movements. Then, there was the large-scale infrastructure project in full swing, day and night. But then, for a period of time, Tianhai City was quiet, as if nothing had happened. A month passed quickly, and Jiang Yi lived in a state of tension every day. As a result, every night he had to call Zhou Qi to give him a full-body muscle massage to relax his body and mind. People in other regions also took it lightly. After all, everything that had happened during this period of time had only come from Jiang Yi's mouth. Perhaps the so-called invasion of the mysterious civilization of Star Island's Misty Valley is just Jiang Yi's personal speculation. After all, in the eyes of others, Jiang Yi has always been the type who likes to make a big deal out of every little thing. Even if something did happen, the first to suffer would be Tianhai City, so they don't need to worry too much. Located thousands of kilometers away from the southeastern region of Huashu Kingdom. It has been 2 years, and the area has been shrouded in a dense gray mist. No living thing dares to go near the sea. The fish in the coastal waters have long since died out. A 500-kilometer radius around Star Island has become a no-go zone for all living things. If you look down on it from space, you will see that it is a very standard circular area. Since the battle on Star Island, warships from the East Sea region and the Columbus Ocean Fleet have been patrolling the area every day. In their eyes, it is both a mysterious restricted area and a huge treasure. Out of awe and greed, they have been trying to find a way to break through the mystery of Star Island's Misty Valley and obtain its treasures. The view from the sky quickly passes through the huge abyss and tens of thousands of meters of rock and soil. If you continue looking down, it suddenly opens up. It is a vast and boundless world. Above the rock face is a dome spanning a long distance. The dome is covered with dark blue and purple ores, and there are silky clouds everywhere. Among the clouds, the dark ores are shining, speckled like a galaxy. The sky is a useless and dying star. Under the dome, on top of a cliff that towered thousands of feet into the sky, sat a strange man covered in black armor and with a long tail. He looked up at the sky, but suddenly let out a deafening roar.